Getting stories from the edge where the healing begins.
Welcome to another edition of the Old Parachute Podcast, a podcast where we talk to a wide variety of guests from all walks of life, talking about their fascinating stories. If you haven't already, please go to the YouTube channel and give the channel a subscribe. It all helps. The main reason we do this, and the main reason I do this, is to kind of promote positive mental health issues within the sort of emergency services and in the veterans community and as a whole. So today's guest, Royal Signals veteran and prolific fundraiser, Gina Ginelli. How you doing? All right?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. No, thanks very much for taking the time to come on. I know we've been back and forth for quite a while now, trying to pin it down as you've been busy or I've been busy, but thank you for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, it's been hard to sort our diaries out because we're both pretty busy people, I think.
Yeah, it's one of them things, and I get it, and I'm fairly flexible. I'm just glad we finally got it nailed down, and I've got you on, so thank you very much. What I like to do with all the podcasts, I like to start at the beginning, get a bit of a background about yourself, where you grew up, what you were like as a kid, and then moving on to sort of the career path that you chose. So yeah, over to you, Gina.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you can still detect my accent, but I have just moved back.
Got it.
Yeah. I grew up on the Wirral, so Merseyside, and I had, you know, a normal upbringing. There was nothing major. I didn't have any problems. I went to school. I was probably a bit of a nerdy kid. I was quite sporty, and that's what took me away really. I got into skiing quite early on. We still have a little plastic slope down the road, and I used to trundle off with my skis and ski whenever I could really on this plastic slope. So I did that a lot, and I also at the same time, as well as my passion being skiing, I also discovered the world of the Army Cadet Force because I lived just around the corner from a reservist unit, RCT at the time, and then convert to RLC. And I seen these cadets going in and found out that there was a youth organisation that was run by the Army, and I got involved. And from the moment I got there, I just loved it. I was there for one night, and then I was away on a weekend camp, you know, doing shooting, drill, map reading, all that really good sort of stuff, and that was me sold really. I just loved and had this affinity to everything that the military did. So that was me.
The cadets are brilliant for that because they you know, you get I never did cadets, but I did like a bit of a week with the local regiment at the time. But they're great for giving young people an insight and sort of a bit of an eye opener to the military, because the military, I think every young person I've spoke to about the military, their immediate reaction is, well, I don't want to go to war. And I try and explain to them that not every unit goes on the front line. There are a lot of units out there. There's so much scope in the British Army to do different roles and stuff. And I think the cadets and sort of organisations like that are really good at giving young people an eye opener.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm still involved now. So I got a bit of spare time about 11 years ago now, and joined up as an adult instructor. So I kind of still, you know, serve, and I get to wear the uniform now and again. I'm the adventure training instructor, so I don't wear it that much. So what I've seen from joining up, being a beginning as a sergeant instructor, getting my own detachment, having kids come in at 12 as you know, shy young lads and ladies, and then developing them through their career of 5-6 years within the cadet force, and developing them with, you know, everything from leadership skills to first aid skills, and confidence building, and then they leave as strong, confident adults at the age of 18, whether that's to go in the military or whether that's to go and off to university, or like one cadet, we introduced her into rock climbing, and then she just was like, this is amazing. And then she became this rock climbing instructor, and she's off somewhere in the world, teaching rock climbing. So yeah, it's a brilliant organisation. So if you've got a child, try and get them in, because it's obviously also cheap child care, because they go away for a week for about 80 quid.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, the rewarding aspects, you kind of bring these up, influential years between the ages of 12 and sort of 18, when teenagers can tend to go one way or another for a period of time, can't they? So
Yeah,
they've got that. And I've said it before, you do meet, sadly, people that don't have positive, at young ages, don't have positive role models in their life. So, you might be the first positive role model that some of these young adults, young teenagers actually have in their life. And I suppose it's realizing that, and realizing the effect that you can have on their kind of life going forward for the rest of their life, isn't it?
yeah, for sure. I mean, when I still remember my adult instructors when I was a cadet, and I hope that I can, inspire the youth, which is, I guess, it's one of the reasons why you do it, isn't it, to give back. And you certainly see a massive difference in them. And the thing with the ACF, the Army Cadet Force, as opposed to other youth organisations, is that are joint onto schools, they choose to go. So, it's extra stuff that they're doing, and they choose to go and they want to be there. So we have that bit of hold over them, because they want to do it, and we keep them because it's so varied. It's not just, as you say, the marching and the shouting. There's so many different aspects to it now, especially. But yeah, I remember my one of my instructors, and he gave me the best bit of advice about joining the military, and I took it. I didn't take no for an answer when I was at the recruiting desk. I wanted to be in the Royal Signals, and I wanted the best trade that I could get. And he said, just go for the best technical trade you can get, that you can achieve. And then at least when you get out, that you're not thinking about at the age 18, you'll have a trade that you can fall back on. And
Yeah,
that's
excellent.
what
So
he gave me.
my question for you then, so why did you go in the signals? Why I'm joking. When you said the best trade, why did you go in the signals? Why didn't you go
Yeah,
like
yeah, why did I become it? Yeah. So yeah, it was he was actually a tanky, the guy, Sergeant Clare, his name was, regular, because we used to have regulars attached to us, and he was like, do it again, signals or Remy, he said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good solid unit, and it is one
yeah,
of them. The people talk about going in and getting a trade. Sometimes you don't see it at the time that
no,
you're kind of a bit tunnel vision, but you have that beauty now of hindsight to looking back to go,
yeah,
well, I've got something to learn in there and fall back on. And I think the
yeah,
military is a little bit different now. I think they open doors for education when you're in as a young or as a teenager, 17, 18 years of age. You can do a lot more when it comes to education, whereas the old education thing for me wasn't even thought of. You just went through depot and went to your unit, So there's a
yeah,
lot that's kind of um, in there now that's massively helpful and changed. But yeah, going back to obviously your kind of career, started off with the cadets, and then at what point in the cadets did you think, right, I'm going to kind of make this? Because a lot of people do cadets and then they don't progress on, do they, to the armed forces? They just kind of go. So you made that decision, right? I'm going in. Boom.
yeah. So it was pretty much, I was on my 4-star, which is the highest star level that you can do in cadets. And when you're 4-star, they are brilliant at most, or particularly then, the majority of military skills, because they have a few more add-ons now that they can do. And I was up for, and it was quite unheard of at the time, because women had only just been allowed, females had only just been allowed in the cadets a few years before, so there was still cadet units that didn't allow girls to join. and I was up for best 4-star cadet. I've still got the trophy upstairs in my office.
Awesome.
That's how much it is, little SA80. And I had to do like a field lesson, so I did stretching, and we had guns and bullets coming down, and we had smoke because we were allowed to smoke, and flashbangs and all that really good sort of stuff. And I had to do this. I did this lesson, and at the end, I actually got awarded. They didn't tell us who'd got it, and I at the parade I got best 4-star cadet, which was an achievement for me definitely, and also because not many girls had ever won it. If had, I don't know, in Merseyside ACF, and I just lived for it. I lived with cadets, and I was like, it is a youth organisation, but I was there all the time. If I wasn't skiing, I was at the cadets, and my main plan was I went to do my A levels, and the plan was to go and study law and then get in the Army Legal Corps, but I didn't quite get the A levels. In those days, you needed like 2 A's and a B, so kind of headstrong, I thought, right, I'm just going to join up. And so I got in as an officer, but apparently I had an accent. So
Never know. You'd never know.
I know. Well, it's gone now, I think. So they said I had to go to elocution lessons and come back in 6 months. So you know what you're like when you're a child, a teenager. You're like, no, I'm joining. So I joined as a soldier, and I never really looked back, to be honest, because my career wouldn't have been the same, I don't think, as an officer. I mean, it might have been better when I got out, because we can discuss that later, but you got more opportunity sometimes as an officer when you leave. But definitely while I was in, I had an amazing career.
Yeah, I know. Awesome stuff. So what year was this? In 96, am I right, when you joined?
Yeah. 96, yeah.
Yeah, and do you know what? I want to ask you, and again, we've moved on a lot. Times have changed, but obviously, still in the, like you touched on it there with the cadets, that females weren't allowed to be in. So how was it? Again, times have changed massively in the last 20 years, where, like I say, I always talk about my fiance's in the fire service. She's an absolute cracking firefighter. She's a better firefighter than I am. I don't tell her that, but everything's come on a long way with stuff like that. But how was it back then for a female joining the military? How did you find it?
So the WRAC had just been disbanded a couple of years before, I believe. So I didn't join in that army, because that was completely different. How they were with women, they were separate, and then they got attached to like the signals, RMPs, that type of style of military that they did. So when I joined, we did everything the same as the men, and we were totally integrated. And I think the Royal Signals particularly, I did have dealings with other regiments which were infantry, and it was slightly different. But with the Royal Signals, they were forward thinking in their technology, as well as how they integrated, I think, women. So I was quite lucky in that way, that they were used to females being part of the corps. That's being said, when I went to 30 Signal Regiment, which was in Nuneaton, the Globetrotters, there was about 300-400 of us, because it was a regiment, and there was probably 30 at most women. So it was still, there wasn't a lot of us, but that was at that time a lot of females. So you were always still on exercises, on operations, alone as the lone female. So it was a very male workplace, and I think I've always worked with men. I still do. It's just where my career path has taken me from the military, really.
Yeah, no, like I say, like it was just different back then, wasn't it? Things are different, and we've moved on, and quite rightly so. And we talk about it a lot, and like I say, my fiance, we talk about it. there are strengths and weaknesses, and there are differences between men and women in them sort of roles. But it's recognizing those differences and then playing to people's strengths, isn't it? It's not. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think, diversity and inclusion is a massive thing at the minute. And when we have a team that's more diverse, potentially we've got more experiences coming into the pot than just one style of individual. And from that, we can potentially problem solve a bit better because we've got more experiences, a diverse background, so that can help us potentially achieve more with a more diverse team. Is I guess how we've got to look at it from that point of view. So we're not all cookie cut.
Yeah. No, I agree with you totally, but I still adhere, and you'll say the same as well. Standards should never drop to incorporate. I think standards need to be there for a reason. And there's always this big argument, and I always think that takes something away when they talk about lowering standards for the ladies that came through back in the 90s and stuff. That you achieved the same standard as the males, so why should standards be dropped? And this is a big bugbear of quite a few females I know in the fire service when they talk of things like that, where they say about lowering standards.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, because then it takes everything away from the hard work that they've done to get where they're at. I think that's something that should never change, and hopefully it never does.
No, I mean, the only, in my whole career, I've always passed exactly the same as what the men have done. The only one test that is slightly different is the old BPFA, or not BPFA, BFT.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called now.
The new terminology.
The mile and a half run as fast as you can, and that is the only difference where we had slightly more time. But that, I think, is just to do with biology. I always try to come in around about the male cut-off time, which was 10:30 at the time. But that, for a female, is pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the differences biologically.
Yeah.
There are them differences. Males tend to be stronger than females and have, because of your different genetic makeup. But as long as you can identify that and like you say, sort of work with it, then it should never really be a hindrance, should it?
And everything, I mean, it's going to be the same in the fire service, I'm sure. Every test has to be the same standard, because at the end of the day, when we're dealing with fire service, military, police, it's people's lives that are on the line, not
100%.
just in civilian streets where, you don't meet a deadline, no one's going to die. But in our roles, somebody could die by dropping that standard. And I think that's the clear thing that defines service with the military or similar to a boardroom paper exercise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree totally. And you know what? The opinions are the same in the fire service, exactly what you've just said there in it, and a lot of the other kind of industries. People's lives are at risk. You can't afford to be lowering standards. You meet that standard for a reason. It's not like if you make a mistake, and nothing against any of the trades like plumbing or, people's lives tend not to be at risk. You're saving people's lives, so them standards need to go. Everyone needs to be at that standard. And I think they are on board with stuff like that. I think there was discussions in some organisations, and I think they got shut down quite rapidly, thinking that there's no place for it, But yeah, anyway, we digress. I knew this had happened.
Massive digression.
Yeah. Going back to, obviously, going through depot, how did you find depot? Because again, I find two types of people, and I'm quite honest, I enjoyed it to a point, but there are people that hated it because it's out the norm. How did you find it?
Because of my ACF grounding, I found it quite easy, mate. Not particularly the fitness, because they do stretch you, and no matter how fit they're always going to stretch you. So, but I didn't have to learn any new skills apart from NBC, which is called something else now, nuclear biology. That was the only additional thing that I had to learn. So it was quite, in that respect, good for me. So I didn't have too much extra to overload myself, which meant I could help others that were straight in from Civvy Street. And yeah, I basic training, I loved it. I was getting paid for it, and normally, I'd be doing it for free with the cadets. So so I really enjoyed that. And then my phase 2 was a bit of a shocker, because that was into Blandford, and because I was doing what was called then a systems engineer, it's changed to communication engineer now, I think. And I was doing, basically, I ended up with a degree after so many years, but I was like sitting in a classroom learning A-level maths and having to pass that. Then I'd pass maths, then I'd be going into electronics, physics and analog and digital, and then coding. And it was like, whoa, this is like, what have I put myself in for? It was really hard work. And then because we had money as well, because it was phase 2 and we were then allowed out, it was like that thing between trying to revise for your maths exam to going out with your friends on the town. And it was a crazy, a bit of a wild time in Blandford, to be fair. And yeah, and it was different, because, as you say, every trade has got a need, and there's different. And maths and physics were my worst subjects at school, and then all of a sudden that's what I was doing.
Well, you were giving me an headache when you were talking about the maths. It doesn't even bear thinking about. But you forget what you kind of have to do for the trades. And the phase 2, our phase 2 was just honing your skills as a paratrooper, which meant being run ragged and thrashed in the field, and all the kind of weapons and map reading. But obviously, there's a lot more to it, like we said at the start.
It was
don't understand.
14 months it was.
Wow.
I think it was 6 months theory, then 7-8 months of getting on the kit, learning the kit, and learning how to fix it and engineer it in and all that type of stuff. And it was hard. Yeah, it was challenging for myself. There was other people who were absolute geniuses on the course, and they would be getting 100%, and I was studying and just scraping through on 60s, 70s, but I was getting through. And then when it came to the fixing of the kit, I then found that easier, I think, because I wasn't as clever as them lot, and I just followed the system of fault finding. So I excelled a little bit there, and then obviously got posted out to my first unit. It was just a long time from basic to then getting to your first unit, just because of my trade.
Yeah, no, do you know what? That's a really good insight, because I never knew that the length of training, and I suppose I've never ignorantly, perhaps, not really kind of, because you don't associate with other units really. I suppose you probably do in the signals, because you get detached and attached to different units. But obviously in my unit, you don't really get to see the inner workings of other units. And probably, like I say, ignorantly, you're unaware of what you have to do to learn. And I've just learned that now, after 20 years of leaving the military, the amount of training that goes into someone when they're doing the SIG. So I suppose it gives you a new appreciation, for me anyway, a new appreciation of other units and what they do. And, that's a good thing. And hopefully the viewers and, followers will take something away. At the end of the day, I try and get people to take stuff away from these podcasts. And that was a brilliant thing there as an insight. So, yeah, thank you very much for that. So you first posted at a depot. Where did you go?
Yeah, I went to. So you get your dream list, don't you? So you get maybe not so much in the, because you get 1 para or 2 paras.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could go. The world was our oyster, and most of my lot, I think there was 6 on my course at the end, and most of mine wanted to go to Germany, Cyprus, all that type of stuff. But I wanted to go to 30 Signal Regiment, which was the globe classed as the Globetrotters for the signals. They tried to think they were a bit, well, I guess they were a bit special, and it was cutting edge at the time. So it was the only unit at the time that had satellite communications. So wherever there was a war, a conflict, a peacekeeping mission, a crisis, we tended to go, because we had to go there and set up comms for the whichever unit or regiment or platoon had been sent over there to sort the mission out, and we were comms back to the UK. So it was brilliant. That's where I wanted to go, and because I wanted to see the world, that's why I joined the army. And within the first 5 years, I had seen the world. I'd seen 35 different countries and had some amazing experiences, some not so good experiences, but definitely saw the world, collected those gongs like you want to join, which was for our era, 96. There was nothing going on when we first joined up apart from Bosnia, and then the world went a bit crazy. So it was a good time to be at 36.
Yeah, no, I kind of, I've touched on this before. After the Falklands, there was obviously Northern Ireland and stuff, but for maybe the best part of 20 years, there wasn't a lot going off in the world outside of Special Forces. We know Special Forces get involved in all sorts of stuff that you'll never hear about, but for the Green Army and stuff like that. So 96, 97, I joined in 97, and obviously Sierra Leone, Afghanistan came in, the first Iraq war, and then second Iraq war, and then obviously later on you got the kind of Afghan tours and stuff like that. So busy period from sort of 96, 97 onwards. It started to really pick up, and that's when they started to inject a bit more kind of funding into the military. Because I don't know if you remember, but I remember when I joined in 97, massively underfunded because not a lot was going off. The kit was sort of second hand, so to speak. You very rarely got brand new kit. You got battered webbing that was been through God knows how many different soldiers, as it were. So, an interesting time to be in. So where was your real first kind of overseas posting when you got to your unit?
Well, literally, I've been there, arrived, the score, put on guard for a month because I was a newbie, got off guard, was sat in. So we were a little bit more relaxed in the signals. We might do a little bit of marching, but we're there to fix kit and do other bits and bobs. So there, I think it was like a Tuesday, because our first parade was in the restroom, and our troop staff, he was up reading stuff, and he was like, Atkinson, Deal, Bosnia, I was like, so we were like, me and this guy Deal, we were both straight out of the factory, posted in together, and it was like, Bosnia, what? And it's like, so we walked up to him and he went, this was the date was for next week, like literally it was Tuesday, and it was like we were flying on the Monday, and you're like, staff, did you get our names wrong? Because we've got Scotty, and he was like, no, Bosnia next week, untapped training tomorrow. So we were off down to not Wafgill. It's somewhere in Salisbury Plain. It eludes me the name of it, for a bit of untapped training, and then gone off to Bosnia. Chris went to Vitorog, which was the highest mountain in Bosnia, where there was a hilltop site up there, and I was in Banja Luka, and I was on the FRT team. So I was just literally, whenever any of the comms in theatre went down, I went out in a Land Rover, and any weather, any time of the day, out in a Land Rover with one other, which would normally be an electronic, a driver, or just anyone I'd be sent out with, and trundling off around Bosnia, just us two with two guns.
Hoping for the best.
Trying to find, Gorny Vakuf or something, and then trying to fix their comms, so the comms were back in. So it was wow. It was like, oh my god, I'm in the real army now.
Yeah, well, that's a kind of massive learning curve, and I suppose you kind of half expect a little bit. You come out of depot, you might be protected for a little bit and
Yeah,
eased in. But I remember coming out of depot and being sent straight, literally within a month, straight on night app training. Down in Lyd, where you do all the kind of stuff that you used to do, and then sent to Northern Ireland as a 17, 18-year-old, and you're like,
yeah,
oh wow, okay, this is it. Where there's a threat, where the threat is very real, and obviously Bosnia, there was a considerable threat. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a weird one, isn't it? You grow up quick, don't you?
yeah. You grow up in different ways, I think, to people in Civvy Street, and I think even when you leave, you've got this wealth of experience, but then you're so inexperienced in other ways. Like that I need to get a dentist or a doctor, and I can't
Yeah.
just rock up. And so yeah, you definitely grow up, but in ways that people probably will never imagine unless they've been in.
You know what? That is an absolute blinder of a point you've touched on there. And you know what? You can look after yourself in the field. Obviously, I was infantry, a paratrooper for 7 years. So out in the field, adminning myself on Salisbury Plain in February for 2 weeks or whatever, I could live in a hole, no problem. Keep the SA80 clean, look after my feet, absolutely fine. But like you say, the army wipe your arse a little bit for you, don't they? As in, like, they
Yeah,
pay your bills, you don't have to. So when you leave, all of a sudden you're like, "What? I've got to pay water and gas and electric and stuff." And as a 24-year-old, I'd never done that. So those were massive kind of things, and with my brain as well, they sometimes can become a little bit overwhelming. And the whole term about being institutionalized is you don't kind of realize the stuff that you do on the outside. So you become very self-efficient looking after yourself in harsh environments, but the everyday stuff can become quite overwhelming, I think, for people when they leave the military. I've seen it a lot. Really, really struggling and figuring out how to get mortgages. I'm still like that now with my fiance, looking at a mortgage, and I'm like, I ain't got a clue. And this is 20 years on.
yeah,
But it is, isn't it? It's a difficult one. They do wipe your ass for you
yeah.
in aspects, but yeah, it's definitely an odd thing. But yeah. So obviously, other tours that you went on, you said it was a fairly busy period. So any of them?
Yeah, so I literally came straight back from that, and then I went away with the army ski team because I obviously had to get myself in on that.
Terrible.
Yeah,
Terrible.
terrible. So I did a bit of that. I came back from that, and then was it Kosovo next? I think it was.
99 was that?
Yeah, it was Kosovo next. So I went out just as it was starting. So it was the start of '99. So it was bitterly cold, and we were there we were staging in Greece, and then we drove over, and then I ended up in Kosovo. At the border of Kosovo, Macedonia, stagging on, watching fireworks going left and right, and ended up getting into Kosovo, and then we got moved out to, which was quite really interesting. So we did Greece, Macedonia, Kosovo, then we went over to Albania, and we were given the mission of setting up comms there because they had a displaced person or a refugee site, I guess, because they're in a different country, so they were refugees, and we were there setting up the refugee site for all of the refugees that were coming over. So that was a completely totally random tour from having civilians attacking us in Greece because there was anti-NATO marchers, to getting into Macedonia, being stones thrown at us when we were on guard, to getting over into the front line, then getting reposted, and then working on the softer side of it, because both of them were peacekeeping missions up to now, and it was really stark to be involved with the refugees, because we were there as a small unit. We had the SATCOM unit and like a a switching station so we could have phone lines out to the UK. And we were just there sort of immersed in this refugee site with people who were worn, torn, removed from their lives and now living in tents in a strange country. So it was a very interesting tour, really. I got to see a lot on that, a lot of the Balkans and yeah, the people as well, and how it had affected them, which is quite, at an early age, is something you don't expect to be sort of seeing, isn't it? But I guess you do expect it, but you never expect to see it because you don't think of being involved too much with civilians. You've got your task in hand, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that whole conflict has slightly been overshadowed by current sort of recent, like the Afghanistan stuff and that. But, you know, that was sort of a hellish kind of conflict that went on there, and the atrocities and the war crimes and you know, the mass burial sites and graves and stuff, and almost like a genocide. Well, it was a genocide.
Yeah.
You know, that people kind of either aren't privy to that information, or, you know, I mean, it was fairly well publicized, but it's just kind of been put back. And I think people forget that for the troops that were on the ground, the sort of things that they saw and witnessed. And like you say, we're very good, the British Army, probably the best in the world. Well, a lot of things, I'm biased, but,
Yeah,
you know, but, you know, that being able to switch from a fighting force to peacekeeping is something we've done for a long time. Whereas I feel like, without mentioning any other countries, but some of the other countries perhaps are not that great at doing the peacekeeping bit as well, as because we did it for years in Northern Ireland. 1 minute you're on, you know, you're getting kind of ambushed by kind of terrorists. The next minute you're putting in VCPs and you're kind of doing sort of the more softer side. So yeah, it's we're very good at that, I think. And yeah, it's again, people forget about that conflict out there.
yeah.
And the sites that, you know, people would have seen, and the lasting effects that it has on people.
Yeah, it was. There was some really good moments. You know, they'd set up a celebration to say thank you to the Albanians, and they'd invited like their mayor there from I think it was a town called Cork, and I might be getting that wrong. It was basically like a dust bowl. They were on this field, and amongst loads of really amazing humanitarian experiences that I witnessed. One that sticks in my mind is they were at a festival celebrating being together, and the next thing I get sort of pushed out the way by this woman who's seen a family member they both thought were dead, and that, you know, that moment is so intense of, you know, you just can't imagine it. Relief, thinking that one of your family members were dead, you're never going to see them again, trying to get over that, and then you see them in this tent.
Yeah, again, that's the stuff people don't realise. You know, they think of conflicts and they think of gun battles, mortar attacks, but that family's being literally split up, like literally torn apart, and then years later, months later, whatever it may be, finding out that a family member's still alive. And like you say, sitting there at a meeting and witnessing that, the emotional side is, yeah, you can't cover. It's joyful, but it's horrible as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we didn't in those days. You didn't really have mobile phones. They were analog. Digital was only just coming in. I don't think text messages existed, so people just didn't know, and the infrastructure even then or now probably wouldn't have still been there for mobile phone signals. So they just didn't know, and that was amongst loads of other different things that happened when you start thinking about it. In that refugee site, we were very privileged to be able to witness that side of humanity, if you like.
Yeah, I know that's yeah. And like I say, people kind of don't realise that, and it's a hard thing to comprehend. And again, it's good that, you know, we're talking about it and people can understand that aspect as well. You know, because sometimes I think it gets lost. obviously, moving forward, that tour, I'm sure there's lots of tours that you've been on. Any that really kind of stand out? Was you on any of the RAC deployments?
No, not officially. No. One of the good ones that it wasn't a good one. I guess you can't say it's a good one, but I was lucky. Again, it's because we see it as an opportunity, don't we?
Of course, yeah.
I went on the East Timor peacekeeping. Again, it was peacekeeping operation. Oplanger, I think it was called, and there was the Australians. So there wasn't many Brits, so it was Australian led, but we went out there to help them with that, and we had 2 Royal Gurkha Regiment went out, and then there was a handful of Brits went, and we were the main contingent of Brits because they needed comms out there.
Yeah, for the purpose of the viewers and followers again that probably don't know what that was, a conflict back. Gosh, yeah, early 2000,
99.
99. The Australians saw some fierce fighting over there, didn't they?
Yeah, so we landed. I think it was D-Day +1, and when we landed, it was like I mean, one of my favourite shows when I was a kid was MASH, and it was a scene that was like a scene from that. It was just it was a tropical paradise that had just been turned into rubble and burning buildings and a ghost town, really. And the thing with that mission is it went from total absolute chaos within a few months to peace and tranquility and bringing the displaced people back down from the jungle and trying to start their lives again. So it was, I think it was seen as one of the most successful missions of the 20th century because there was no mission creep from our perspective. There was no mission creep. We went in there and we turned it around. We stopped the militia and we got the UN back in and got them voting again because the UN had fled because of the atrocities that was happening there. With
Isn't that crazy that it kind of, because it wasn't mainstream media over here at all.
no.
Probably bits of stories if you chose to find them, but wasn't a big thing. And like you say, probably one of the most successful missions of the of recent times, and people have probably never heard of it.
No,
how is that?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it was probably. I mean, when I look back, the other 2 were active, but it was a very, very active and volatile mission for myself. I remember we were staged in Australia, which was great. I got to go to Australia.
Yeah, these didn't sound ridiculous.
Yeah. And I remember writing on an old-fashioned bluey, which used to be the way that you could communicate to home, the postal service. And I wrote a will out and put it in my pocket, in one of your old books, and said to my friends, if I die, my will's in there, because it was that volatile. And I've still got that will upstairs somewhere, but I won't open it. I'm not tempting fate. But I didn't know much. I think I owned a car and maybe, some CDs from Bosnia.
Handing out your boots.
Exactly, yeah.
But the bluey system, God, that brings back memories. Again, the soldiers of today will have no understanding about.
No, it's all email.
Yeah, and blueys, like you say, were like a fold up in itself, wasn't it? So you used to fold it up into itself as an envelope. But that's how you sent, and they were free, weren't they? You could send blueys back free.
Yeah, they were free, and there was like rules, wasn't it? If somebody had put a stamp on it, you got created. Or you get more than 5, you got created. I remember my friends that were in, they used to write like loads of blueys, like with one letter in, like hello or something. Send me loads to try and get me created.
But they were great for morale, when you kind of platoon sergeant or whatever was handing them out.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
You were like, there'd always be someone like that didn't get one or didn't get any mail, and you just be like, oh God, I feel sorry for them. But
I'm writing one.
Yeah. Or you get the old Dear John bluey where the kind of your partner's decided to leave you, and you're like, oh great, so brilliant. But God, taking me back there, Gina, I tell you.
Yeah.
So East Timor. I worked in Iraq with some guys from the Australian armed forces that served over in Timor at the start. And subsequently, I think they did rotations through that for a number of years.
Yeah, it ended up there, Bosnia.
Yeah.
Really.
And they said before, it was a good posting towards the end because, like you say, it's tropical.
They got loads of money as well.
Yeah.
They were getting, they were getting paid a lot of money. They were getting loads of extra money to be on operations. And when they found out we were on like an extra £4 a day to be over there, they were just
Don't
like,
get me started on the British Army and things like that. I've had a bit of a rant.
They were paying mortgages off, and we were like, "Yeah, I can buy a McDonald's meal when I get back."
But I've been quite vocal about the way that veterans have treated over the years, and how I've got friends that served in the special forces, and work with SEALs and Delta and stuff, and been involved in incidents where they've been injured and then they've been pensioned off, tax-free, looked after, and yet our sort of veterans are fighting to get just a payout or a minimal forces pension. And it's absolutely disgusting, and I can't get my head around. And not only that, as well, in foreign countries, if you're a veteran, you're treated like, not like royalty, because no one I don't want to be treated like royalty.
No, but you treated
out of respect, isn't they?
Yeah. Well, actually, a little story. I just come back from doing some work in the Middle East, and because I've got like my veterans card, but I've got an army ID card because I'm still in the cadets, and they give you the same one. And we got fast tracked through the airport because we were military veterans, not of their military, of a British military, fast tracked through the whole airport. And yeah, no waiting, no queues, treated like royalty. And that was a foreign, which was unbelievable. I was like, look at us.
I know, that's how you don't expect it. And I remember going to the States when I did a bit of backpacking around the world, and I was in between contracts in Iraq, and I had a Department of Defense badge that gave me the rank of an equivalent US sort of officer on the contract I was on. And I remember showing that at the Empire State Building, and the queues were massive, and I got fast tracked to the front of the queue, up the Empire, didn't have to pay for it, anything. Yeah. And it's just bomb. And I remember the same sketch being in Australia quite recently and going to Steve Irwin Zoo and explaining to them that I was do you take blue light discount? Show my fire service ID, let him for free. Should have been £60 each. Yeah. And you don't get that here. You ask any place, you go, "Oh, do you do blue light discount?" "Oh, we don't do that." "Do you do veterans?" "No, you don't."
They go, "We do students."
I know.
I'm not a student. I started. I had a letter today back from the current veterans minister about a campaign I was trying to push. I won't say anymore. Trying to push further, and it was getting somewhere with the old government, but now it changed. You have to start over again, and it's like, oh, but I got a reply back saying, "Yeah, he's too busy."
Doing important stuff, I suspect.
Hopefully, so I'm going to keep pushing, but that's all we can do, isn't it?
No, awesome stuff. Yeah, no, it's good that you're an advocate for that kind of stuff, and I try and do what I can as well. But it frustrates me more than anything else. But I try not to get political.
Yeah, we could be there for hours.
Oh God, it does get you though, doesn't it? It winds me up, and like I said, I don't expect any special favours. No. We signed on the line to serve the country, signed on the dotted line, oath of allegiance and that to serve the country. Now, all that we ask is that we get treated fairly when things go a bit wrong, and afterwards, and when we struggle due to the things that we've seen. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn by saying that. You'll get the trolls on here, no doubt, commenting, going, "Well, you knew what you were getting yourself in for." Blah, blah, blah.
Remember we were teenagers as well.
Yeah.
Remember if you have a look at what stupid stuff teenagers do nowadays, and that, yeah, okay, you can say we were adults, but you are a lot younger and not as wise. So
yeah, no,
I wouldn't change it.
No,
it's like, but it's just the respect.
I do ask this question quite a lot, and I was recently on a podcast, come out today actually. and I was chatting to a guy, and he kind of, I asked him the question, knowing what you know now, not if it was back when I was sort of late 90s, I'd have done exactly the same, because I had an absolutely brilliant time. It's taught me everything in a lot of life things that I take forward in every profession I've done. But knowing what I know now about how veterans are treated, I don't think I'd join again. You know, I don't think, if it was now and I knew what I knew, I just don't think I would, because you're thrown on a scrap heap after you leave, and it's not right. It's not that sort of organisation. It shouldn't be that sort of organisation. And you should, what you're prepared to give, you should. I'm not talking about fully pensioned off and everything else. Just if you're rightfully for a claim, you shouldn't have to fight for it. They should say, "Yeah, we'll pay you out for that because this." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, exactly.
there we go. Anyway, fast forward, Gina. Kind of moving through your career now, I don't know how much you say about it, but you were involved with, was this why you were still in the regular army, kind of training with SEALs and Delta? Was this right?
Yeah, so after doing bits and bobs, I went back to Blandford. I finished my class 1, which was another 14 months. Being a geek, learning electronic engineering and that type of stuff, came out with I say a degree, but I guess it's not, it's just below a HND in electronic engineering. And for any of you, if you've got listeners abroad, it's virtually a degree, isn't it? And then I went to Northern Ireland. I was there for a while, got stuck behind a desk, so then I specialised and went off and did various cool stuff with various units. And when I then left, I left from that unit and I went off and got some amazing opportunities, and that was where I ended up in America as a contractor teaching Navy SEALs and Delta Force. Is how that led to that, and that was, I know we're the best army. We've got the best sort of special forces, but there's something cool about Navy SEALs and Delta Force. I think it's all the Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah,
It was.
I've come across a few.
Yeah. So it was. It was like the after I left the military, my and going over to America and working over there and contracting out to these organisations that you've only seen on Hollywood films. It was definitely an experience for sure, and to be there as instructing and teaching them was another level, really.
Yeah, I bet, uncapped not uncapped, but bigger budget, kind of bigger toys to play with.
Yeah.
And I said that when you see what the US kind of soldiers, having worked alongside them throughout the kind of my careers, I kind of, you're in awe, aren't you?
Yeah, Gucci kit.
Budget. I know, isn't it? It's like, what? Have some of that. They all the kind of kit and equipment, the day sacks, it's all kind of alley stuff as
well, the biggest thing that was there then that we didn't really, it was new technology into the UK actually, and it's like I'm never using one of these, was sat navs in your car, for guidance. It was like, why do you need a sat nav? You just write down where you're going and get to it. And they were heavily reliant on tech, and they were using the sat navs and trying to bypass a bit of map reading. So we had to take the sat navs off, but I think that was the first time I actually saw a sat nav, to be honest, was when I was over there. And it wasn't that new technology, but they all had them issued to them. So.
God, I remember having one when I was a team commander in Northern Ireland. I had my own team in Northern Ireland, and on the last tour I did, and they were good because the RAF had a habit of dropping us in the wrong place at night. So all I ever used the hand, and they were about this big. They filled a whole webbing pouch back then.
Yeah.
The Garmin ones. And I think it was called a Garmin E-Trax, and I used it to get an 8-figure grid just so I could find where I was after the RAF dropped us off at night in the wrong spot, 2Ks in the wrong sort of direction. But yeah, I can imagine that being a night. Was this the time when you lived in Beverly Hills as well, or was this?
Yeah, it was around the same time. So I was working for a high net worth individual over in Chicago, and she had houses in Chicago. She had houses in LA, in Aspen, all around the world. So I had a penthouse flat in Chicago that they bought for me. I mean, it obviously wasn't mine, but that's where I was living, overlooking the Navy Pier, which is one of their classic tourist attractions in Chicago. Absolute unbelievable, really. And then she also was in LA for a certain amount of time, and she lived in what was called at the time Beverly Park. So that was the posh part of Beverly Hills. So you sort of go up through Beverly Hills, these like ivory gates open, and and then you go into Beverly Park, and they, no word of a lie, they have deers prancing around in this park. So it's like crazy, and their houses were unbelievable. The director, I think, one of the big directors, I can't remember who did Transformers. I think he lived opposite or something like that.
Michael Bay.
It might be.
Is that my nerdiness coming out? That
Yeah, it might. Some mega rich director anyway lived opposite, and my walk-in wardrobe is still probably bigger than my house now that I had when I was there. It was crazy. I'd never seen a telly that big. I mean, I don't think I've seen a telly that big since, to be fair. I've got a pretty big telly now. I'm just looking at it. That's, I don't know what that is, 50 inches or something. But it's like, it was just filled the room. And yeah, it was crazy because you were there looking after this individual, but it's like you have their money because you go to all these places that you would never even get let into if you walked up to try and get into them. But because you're one of the staff, you're just in.
Was this sort of a close protection role then?
Yeah, that was CP that I was doing with her out there. So,
awesome stuff.
yeah.
Because you did sort of close protection, sort of got with naval ships and stuff for a long period of time, didn't you? As well.
Yeah. So the company that I then, when I left there, I came back to the UK, set up a security company. It was going to be a CP company, and it was going to be just for females, but I got an awful lot of pushback on it, saying, you know, I was sexist and stuff like that. So it ended up just being too much hassle, and I ended up falling into security guarding and getting a contract providing security to MOD vessels when they came in for refit or reservice, and the Navy would go off, or the Royal Fleet Auxiliary would go off, and then we'd put the security on, and then the vessel would be refitted or serviced or whatever was going on with it, and we'd be on there maintaining the security of the vessel while the Navy were off doing other bits and bobs. And that was 14 years that we ran that contract with lots of, even the new destroyers we were on, which was phenomenal to be stood on this ship with sometimes only yourself and another couple of security guards. It was a bit like, the I Am Legend film where he's playing golf.
Yeah.
The back of the flight carrier. I had visions of that across the Mersey.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Yeah. So that's landed a really, really good contract there then, to be fair.
Yeah, it was good. Because it was ships, I ebbed and flowed with staff, so it would go sort of from each ship vessel would have a team of 10 on it, so they could do days on, days off, and it would ebb and flow from like one ship to anything from 10 members of staff up to 100 at the end. So it was a pretty big operation, and devoted a lot of my time, I think, which is why for sort of 10 years I never even had a holiday abroad. I'd just go camping, and even then, the moment you'd get out of signal or something, your phone would be buzzing because you'd have 100 messages. So it's it's kind of like work-life balance with that, I think.
Yeah,
There was no.
sometimes you get tied up in stuff, and then before you know it, you're wrapped up, and you a little bit like, especially when it's your kind of baby, if you like, you do become
Yeah,
not obsessive, but you don't trust not trust, but you want to do it yourself.
yeah,
And you know, I've had recent kind of talks with people to take the podcast on through marketing companies, and it means handing over the reins.
mm,
And as much as I'm at a point where I could probably do with doing that, I don't want to, because
yeah.
you know what I mean. I want to be involved, and I can imagine that when your company wanting to.
Yeah, and it was hard to trust people, and then I sometimes I had brought in like a supervisor and stuff, and then it didn't work because he was doing naughty stuff and trying to win contracts behind my back, and
You can't.
it's that trust thing. So I ended up just literally I was the HR manager, the operations manager, the
Wow.
hiring, firing, first aid training, and yeah, I mean, I kind of thrived from it, but it's very hard to find someone who you can trust with the business, who's not going to be disloyal and try and take the business from you, and two, having that ability to step back, I guess.
Yeah, it's difficult, like you say,
Yeah,
though, but sometimes for your own kind of almost sanity. And we talk about mental health. I'm quite open about that. And sometimes, like that, when you get run down by work, that's when you're vulnerable to kind of probably having a few issues with the whole mental health thing and that. So sometimes it's great, but then you need to take a step back and realise that it's not everything as well, don't you? So
definitely.
yeah,
You need space for yourself, and it wasn't until that business, through no fault of my own, it was a massive corporate takeover, and they just got rid of all the local suppliers, and it was a very stressful time because a lot of money was owed, and a lot of money was owed to loads of other different companies. And after that was settled, and we managed to get paid, I realised how stressed I had been, and how I was kind of living on stress, and not sure I'd ever want to. I don't know whether I could say no to a contract, but not sure whether I'll ever want to go back to that level of business leadership. I'm quite happy passing on my knowledge to others to go through that.
yeah, I get it. It's difficult though, isn't it? I think people that have been in the military and certain type of people, they have that drive, that where they want to kind of. You'll always have that part of you once you've done it as well that'll think, well, I can still do that and go. But like you say, it's just working out what works for you. And ultimately, look, we're here once without sounding corny. You've got to, that balance is massively important. Not ploughing yourself into something where you can't enjoy life, because things can change in life overnight. You see it, you never know what's around the corner. You're living your best life one minute, and literally it could be over the next, without being depressing. But it's about striking that balance, isn't it?
No, definitely, and that the sort of, for me, the last 5 years has certainly taught me that lesson, which is why if I can just be out walking in the hills or walking around my local park as opposed to slugging my guts out for the man, then that's what I'm going to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Life's too short.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, moving on, I want to talk to you. Obviously, we said at the start that you're a prolific fundraiser. You've done kind of loads and bits of bobs for various charities across the board. So yeah, tell us about the reason I always like to touch on this, because, and without fear of repeating myself, a lot of people I have on, a lot of guests, they get to a point in life, and that's where I'm at now. I'm comfortable with certain aspects of my life, my partner, my kids, and my relationship with my kids coming over, and all that kind of stuff. But you get to a point where you want to perhaps give something back, and that's kind of where I'm at with a podcast. Look, I am doing it for a few other reasons as well, but if I can give a little bit back, pass on some of the knowledge and help people along the way, and obviously I feel like, is that where kind of you're at, and that what led you on to that kind of path as well?
Yeah, so I'd always done stuff for charity from an early age, just with the the poppy appeal and collecting money for that. And I'd always, since I left the military, I did challenges like Death Valley and raising money for that was the British Heart Foundation. And whenever I did like ultras, I'd always stick up a fundraising page. But I'll try and put it in a nutshell and not make it stretch it out too long. So the journey to here was sort of the last 5 years, and it started, the catalyst, if you like, was in 2019. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and at the same time, or before, I think it was just after, my brother was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer.
Wow.
And November 2019, we had this, tidal wave coming towards us of COVID, and we dropped everything and started concentrating on my brother. He was 51 at the time, and within a few months, COVID had hit, and it made anything that was bad, probably the worst time in history that we have been alive, worse. So cancer treatments were being stopped. Everybody was on lockdown, and tragically, he died. The cancer ripped through his body within 4 months, and
Wow.
and that was, we were all just left with, wow, and we're still locked down. We can't, like thousands of other people, couldn't say goodbye to their loved ones properly because we couldn't have funerals.
Yeah.
We couldn't have wakes. And my way of coping with that, and I'd also during that phase been helped by military charities. I thought, right, I've got to do something. So that's when I started on a year-long challenge raising money in the name of my brother. And in that year, I raised £10,000, incredibly, and set up an art foundation, which is still going today on the Wirral, and it's for cancer patients, so they can go and have a respite from the disease, so they can concentrate on something else and not be constantly thinking. So I set up that art foundation, and then from there I thought, well, I've got to give back to the charities that have helped me. I mean, I didn't have to. They didn't say you've got to give back, but you kind of want to. And I didn't think that I could do another sort of running challenge or something, because I'd been asking people for money and I phenomenally made 10 grand. So I put together a charity book, a poetry book about the military, written by the military and families of the military. And if I do say so myself, I always forget about this part. It's a lovely book, and it's still out there, and all profits go to SAFA, the Armed Forces charity.
Wow.
And from there, I just gained a little bit of traction, and then started back doing my crazy fundraising, like a bit of ultras, fit. I tried to do everything apart until this year, everything in the UK, and like an everyday adventure. So I'd, like, one morning it was Christmas morning, I got up and decided to cycle 100 miles on a bike for Christmas Day, all on an indoor bike, as you do.
Fairly normal.
Yeah.
Back to Christmas dinner.
Yeah, I actually got it wrong. I was supposed to say 100k, but I'd said 100 miles. So that was me on a bike all day, much to the annoyance of everyone else. I've done 50k a day for 30 days. And from there, I raised, because people had just got out of COVID. So there was a lot of expendable income, I think, is how this happened. And within like a year, 2 years, I'd raised £300,000 for veterans charities, which was phenomenal. And from there, I kind of keep wanting to go bigger and better. So, and now it's not so much about raising the money, although I do try to. It's more about getting the message out there about the charities that are available for people, because you never know you're going to need a charity until you do. realistically, a lot of people will think they'll never need a charity like myself, and then the next thing, something happens, a baseball bat of life hits you on the back of the head, and you're stuck. And for me, that's the platform that I have, and being invited on podcasts is to talk about charities and the fundraising. And so that's the side effect of it, and it's probably more I get than the fundraising at the minute. So like last year, I did a Scotland 300, which was solo, unsupported. All of my things are self-funded as well, and that was 300 miles alone across Scotland, doing 100. It was about 120 miles hiking, 80 miles kayaking across the Great Glen, and then cycling back. And that raised about £3,000 altogether for the veterans charities. But what it did do was, I think, a better message was highlighted the effects of loneliness and how it's killer on mental health, and also raised the awareness of the charities. And then moving forward to this year, I'm trying to do it all about connection. It's also 5 years since COVID and my brother died, so it's a kind of anniversary and celebration of his life and everybody who lost somebody during COVID. But this year I'm trying to do it about connection. So I'm doing 5,200 miles in a year, so it's about 100 miles a week, and I'm finishing at the foot of Everest. But this time I'm taking a team of amazing, inspirational women along with me to the foot of Everest for Everest Base Camp. And hopefully we'll raise lots of awareness about how connection and positive mental health can help people overcome struggles. And that's this year's message. Hopefully that'll get out.
Well, absolutely amazing stuff, Gina. First, I'm sorry to hear about your brother, and obviously I know that must have been a very, very difficult time. And like you say, people didn't get that closure because of COVID, weren't able to say their kind of. So that's massively impacted probably millions of people. So yeah, so sorry to hear about that. But wow, amazing work, and it's not just asking for money, which is fine. People can fundraise by asking people to donate, but you're actually putting yourself out there and putting yourself through some pretty epic kind of endurance events, and being on your own for God knows how long while doing these kind of sort of things. So I think that's absolutely brilliant that you do that. And yeah, and didn't you win sort of inspiration of the year? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. When was
Yeah.
that? 2023, was it?
2022. I'm still kind of I'm still blown away that I actually was one sort of nominated and recognised, but then to go on and win was a bit of a shocker, really, because when you Soldiering on Awards is probably the military awards that, without annoying anyone else, it's sort of the pinnacle of it, isn't it, for the military serving past veterans, and to get up on that stage was phenomenal, and it was amazing to be recognised. And I think the thing with it is there's so many people out there doing amazing charity work and volunteer work that will never be recognised. For me to have been recognised and put up on that stage was phenomenal, and hopefully when I was up there I represented all of the charities and what their volunteers do, and hopefully what the Army Cadets do as a Army Cadet volunteer. But it was phenomenal to win that, and yeah, still sort of blown away. And I've been involved with those awards since as a judge, which has been incredible to then be on the other side of the coin and reading the nominations and getting to meet these amazing, inspirational people that come through every year from our community, from the military community.
Well, for me, it was well deserved, and I think quite rightly so as well, from some of the amazing stuff you've done. And please, kind of feel free to tag me in anything or add me. I'll add all your links to this podcast at the end, to the kind of fundraising pages, to the event links and anything else, so people can go take a look at that. But for the viewers and followers that will see this, please go and support Gina. Go to her Instagram account. Go to her. You have an Instagram account, don't you?
Yeah, I'm on all platforms. Yeah,
on all platforms.
Slightly, I think I am. I don't know whether there's any. Probably not Pinterest. Not on that.
No, I'm not on that one. No, I'll put all your links up when I release this podcast and when I release the clips and everything else. So please go and support Gina and amazing work she does. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Gina. And also, I want to ask you, when I got your name, Gina Ginelli, I thought there must be some sort of Italian background there somewhere. What's the sketch there? I didn't speak on the Wirral.
That's a nickname from the army, and I haven't worked out how to change it back.
No, fair play.
Yeah, it should be Atkinson at some point.
Right, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
No, look, Gina,
I like to be a secret squirrel. That's what it is.
Fair play to you. I can't fault you. Keep yourself under the radar with some things. No, look, been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on. It has been an epic chat, and hopefully the viewers and followers will thoroughly enjoy it and get a bit of an insight. I think there was quite a few bits on there that we touched on, the insights that I've not covered before. And like I say, I've took stuff away from the podcast, the stuff I've learned about other units and things along the way. So, no, thank you very much for taking the time to come on, Gina. I'll have a quick chat with you in a second off air.
Yeah.
But for now, you take care and keep up the amazing work.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully it's been insightful. Give the Royal Signals a big shout out.
Absolutely no. Thank you very much, pal. You take care.
Take care. Bye.
Hit the ground, no sound but the wind jumped out the sky where the real work begins. Iraq heat, cold steel on the front line, security tight, walking edge of a landmine. Somali seas, deck slick with the salt, eyes sharp, never blink, never halt. Surveillance in the mist, eyes on the prize. UK streets to foreign skies, from fire calls to bare knuckle rings, still fighting demons that memory brings. Oh, Kevin, tune in now, feel the truth get louder. This is the old paratrooper, no powder, no script, no mask, no lies, just facts. Mental health raw in boots or slacks, ADHD to the PTS pain. We're breaking silence, not playing games. Old paratrooper podcast, stay locked in. Stories from the edge where the healing begins. Not a saint, just a voice for the ones who never had a fucking choice. From the wire to the ward, from smoke to the dark, every scar on the soul is a battle mark. Memories haunting, can't shake the